ICE agents rammed through the door of an American citizen. No warrant, no criminal record. Son of a nurse who treated American soldiers in Vietnam. They dragged him out of his house in his underwear, in below zero temperatures, threw him in a car, drove him around for an hour. They could not identify him by looking at his identification because they did not want to look at his identification. And the person they were actually looking for? Already in prison. Had been in prison for years. They had the wrong house, the wrong man, and they did it anyway. This happened in Minnesota. Under Kristi Noem's Department of Homeland Security, and when Congress asked her about it, she could not even say it was wrong. Let's start with the scale of what Noem deployed to Minnesota. 3,000 ICE agents, Border Patrol, Homeland Security investigators, sent to Minneapolis and St. Paul, outnumbering the sworn police officers of the 10 metro police departments combined by 3-1. 3 federal agents for every 1 local police officer in an American city, not a war zone, not a foreign country. Minneapolis, Minnesota. And in one single month, out of 3 fatal shootings in the city of Minneapolis, 2 of them were committed by federal agents. 2 out of 3. Kristi Noem's agents were responsible for the majority of fatal shootings in Minneapolis in that month. Those 2 were Renee Good and Alex Prey, American citizens. Both called domestic terrorists by Noem within hours of their deaths, without evidence, without investigation, without facts. 3,000 agents, 2 dead Americans, 0 accountability. And 650 of those agents are still there, still in Minnesota, right now, as you watch this video. Now let's talk about the man dragged out in his underwear, an elderly American citizen, no criminal record, son of a nurse who cared for U.S. soldiers during the Vietnam War. ICE agents bashed through his door, no judicial warrant, just broke it down and went in. They dragged him out. Underwear. Crocs. Below zero temperatures outside. Threw him in a vehicle, drove him around for an hour. He tried to show them his identification. He tried to prove he was an American citizen. They did not want to see it. Congress asked Noem, did they have a judicial warrant when they rammed through that door? Her answer, our law enforcement officers follow the same protocols and procedures as all law enforcement. That is not a yes. Congress asked, are you aware the person they were looking for was already in prison? Her answer, yes, we do targeted operations. That is not an answer. Congress asked, do you agree it is unacceptable to ram into someone's door, drag them out in their underwear in below zero temperatures when you have the wrong guy? Her answer, our officers conduct targeted operations and utilize the law processes given to them. 3 times, 3 different ways of asking the same question. Do you think this was wrong? She could not say yes. She could not look at an elderly American citizen being dragged out of his home in his underwear in below zero temperatures while the person they were actually looking for was sitting in a prison cell and say that was wrong. That tells you everything about who was running this department. But it gets worse. ICE agents in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, stopped an off-duty police officer, a person of color, a sworn law enforcement officer, off-duty, an American citizen with a badge. ICE agent stopped her, guns drawn, demanded proof of citizenship. The police chief responded publicly. He said, I wish I could tell you this was an isolated incident, but other chiefs told him it had happened to their own officers too. Off-duty police officers, people of color, stopped by federal agents with guns drawn, demanding citizenship papers. Congress asked Noem, do you think they were stopped because they were people of color? Her response? She started talking about drug traffickers, about violent criminals, about the good work ICE does protecting communities. She did not answer the question. Because the question, were your agents racially profiling American citizens, including sworn law enforcement officers, has only one honest answer, and she was not going to give it. Congress had to ask her directly, will you stop deflecting and answer whether it is acceptable for your agents to stop off-duty police officers at gunpoint? She kept talking about ICE's good work.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Noem, as Secretary of Homeland Security, you oversaw Operation Metro Search. Is that correct?
Yes, as Secretary, I oversee ICE and CBP and HSI officers that were there doing their work.
Over 3,000 ICE agents, Border Control to Minnesota, outnumbering our 10 Metro Police departments, outnumbering by 3 to 1 the number of sworn police officers in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Is that correct?
Yeah. We were working to do targeted operations against
if you
criminal,
could answer yes or
illegal
no.
aliens, and we needed to do that in a safe manner to make sure that we could ensure the safety of our law enforcement officers.
Two of my constituents, Renee Good and Alex Preddy, were killed. They should be alive today. In fact, in 1 month in the city of Minneapolis, when you look at the 3 fatalities that were results of shooting, 2 of 3 were committed by federal agents. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
So your agents, not only their actions resulted in the deaths of 2 innocent American citizens, but they repeatedly violated my constituents' First Amendment rights to assemble. You say you believe in the Second Amendment right to bear arms, but Alex Preddy was criticized repeatedly by officials in the administration for having a lawful permit to carry and having a gun. Your agents violated the Fourth Amendment rights of my constituents by ramming through doors of innocent people's homes, innocent citizens' home, without any kind of a warrant, and violated the Fifth Amendment right to due process. So as I've shared with my colleagues, if you believe in federalism, in freedom, and in liberty, you should be horrified by what the Department of Homeland Security did in Minnesota. So my first question is, having spoken to Mr. Homan, what is the exact number of DHS agents still in Minnesota?
Well, I believe that there is still close to 650 there, counting the investigators that are there, working to get to the bottom of the unprecedented fraud that has been found in the Medicaid
Was
funding.
5-year-old Liam involved in that fraud? As you know, I am all in on prosecuting fraud. I put in place the U.S. attorney who exposed the fraud under the Biden administration and brought the bulk of the prosecutions, and also recommended to Mr. Blanche that Joe Thompson be the acting U.S. attorney who led those prosecutions and now has left the office because the Department of Justice asked him and many others to investigate Renee Good's wife instead of doing their jobs doing fraud. So what I want to know is, when are you going to get down to the original footprint as promised to us?
We're continuing to work at that, although those investigators will continue to stay there to get to the bottom of that fraud, to make sure that those vulnerable people that rely on those programs actually get services from those federal dollars that are spent, that it's not stolen by criminals and used by individuals to enrich themselves and send it out of the country.
Secretary Chung-Li Tao.
Now, here is the moment that might be the most stunning thing in this entire hearing. Congress asked Noem, do you have anything you want to say to Alex Preddy's parents after you called their son a domestic terrorist the day after he was killed? Alex's parents had already spoken publicly. They said calling their son a domestic terrorist was one of the most hurtful things they could ever imagine. Their son, a VA nurse who spent his career caring for dying veterans, called a domestic terrorist by the Secretary of Homeland Security. Noem's response to their pain? She said, I did not call him a domestic terrorist. She said that. On camera, in front of Congress, in front of the entire country. I did not call him a domestic terrorist. She absolutely called him a domestic terrorist. The video exists. The transcript exists. She went on national television within hours of his death and said his actions appeared to be an act of domestic terrorism. Her own acting ICE director had already admitted before Congress that there was no evidence to support that claim. And she sat there with his parents watching and said she did not call him a domestic terrorist. That is not a misremembering. That is not a slip of the tongue. That is a lie. told directly to the family of a man her agents shot 10 times. On camera. Under oath. The audacity of that moment, looking into a camera while a grieving family watches and lying about what you said about their dead son, is something that is very difficult to put into words. So I will let you feel it for a moment. And then, to make everything worse, Noem's department blocked local law enforcement from investigating. After Renee Good and Alex Prey were killed, Minnesota state investigators tried to access the scene. Standard procedure. When someone dies in your city, local investigators go in. Noem's department said no. Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, seasoned professionals who had worked directly with federal agents on previous investigations, including the assassination of Speaker Hortman and the killing of 2 children in a church, blocked. The mayor called his congressman directly. The congressman tried to call the DOJ. They were locked out. These are the same investigators who had worked hand in hand with federal agents on previous cases. Trusted. Experienced. Professionals. Blocked from the scene of the shooting of 2 American citizens by the federal agents who shot them. Congress asked Noem, "Do you think blocking local law enforcement from the scene makes people safer?" Her answer, "Our PSY officers were preserving evidence and keeping violent rioters away." Congress asked, "Will you commit to reversing the decision and allowing the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to participate in the investigation?" Her answer, "The FBI is leading the investigation. Ask them." She deployed 3,000 agents to Minneapolis. Her agents shot 2 American citizens. She blocked state investigators from the scene. She lied about calling one of them a domestic terrorist. And when asked to allow experienced local professionals into the investigation, she pointed at the FBI, the same FBI that works under her. This is a cover-up. There is no other word for it.
Why were these officers stopped?
We have thousands of law enforcement operations that we do every single day.
Do you think they were stopped because they were people of color? Were they racially
and drug
profiled?
traffickers
Ms.
off
Noem.
our streets. When I look at these American families that have been victimized by criminals that we have removed from cities and from communities, I'm grateful for the work that our ICE officers do. And by your only
Are you
focusing,
defending stopping
I would like
off-duty
to hear you
police
talk about
officers
some of the
of color
operations
and
that we've done
dragging a
to
Hmong
bring
elder
people
out of
to
his
justice.
home?
When you only talk about these situations like this that we are conducting, and you don't talk about the good work that they do to protect people from being victimized by people that are in this country that want to conduct violent crimes against them or take advantage of them. The laws need to apply to everyone, and we're out there enforcing the law.
I am a former prosecutor,
Context is
Ms. Noem, and
incredibly
I
important.
have always
in every
worked with our
situation.
police well, but that's not what was going. These ICE agents were not following police procedures. After the killings of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, when I spoke to Alex's parents, they told me that you calling him a domestic terrorist, this was directly from them, the day after he was killed. A nurse in our VA, Alex, one of the most hurtful things they could ever imagine was said by you about their son. Do you have anything you want to say to Alex Preddy's parents?
We were relying in the hours after that incident that was so horrific on information we were getting from the ground from our agents.
I just asked if you had anything you wanted to say to the parents or to the family of Renee Good after you called them domestic terrorists.
Can't even imagine what they have gone through in the loss of their son and the loss of their family members.
But how about specifically calling them domestic terrorists without any evidence of that?
Sir, ma'am, I did not call him a domestic terrorist. I said it appeared to be an incident of.
I think the parents saw it for what it was. After the killings, the federal government refused to cooperate with state law enforcement. Agents blocked Minnesota investigators from accessing the scene. I know because I got directly calls from the mayor. I tried to call the DOJ. I tried to do everything I could because they were very worried about what was going to happen immediately, especially after Alex Preddy's death. Do you think that blocking local law enforcement from the scene of a shooting makes people safer? Yes or no?
Actually, our HSI law enforcement officers risked their lives on that scene, preserving evidence and keeping the violent rioters away from the evidence so it
What
could be
life was
preserved for
lost
the
at that
investigation.
scene, Secretary Noem?
Yes, I
Was
understand that.
Alex Preddy's life
And
that was
after it
lost.
became
I
very,
believe it is in the interest of justice to have a full and transparent investigation.
the investigation's being led by FBI and internal investigations as well into this incident.
Will you commit to reversing the decision to cooperate with the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, an agency of seasoned professionals that the agents worked with directly, FBI agents worked with directly to investigate after the shooting, assassination of Speaker Hortman, after the killing of those two little kids in that church with the bullets going through those stained glass windows? In both incidents, our federal and local law enforcement work together and are working together in those investigations. But they have been blocked, the locals have, from being part of this. Why is that, Ms. Noem?
The FBI is leading this investigation, and I would leave that question for them to answer.
Thank you.
Let me tell you what we just watched. A Secretary of Homeland Security who deployed 3,000 agents to an American city, whose agents shot 2 American citizens dead, who called them domestic terrorists, who lied about calling them domestic terrorists, whose agents raided the wrong house, dragged an innocent man out in his underwear in below zero temperatures, and stopped off-duty police officers at gunpoint, and who blocked local investigators from finding out what actually happened. That is what was running the Department of Homeland Security. And Trump defended her for 13 months. Share this video. Because Renee Good and Alex Prey deserve the truth to be told. Subscribe, new video every week. Drop a comment. Do you think the full investigation into Minneapolis will ever be made public? Because right now, everything suggests someone very powerful does not want that to happen.